Hello and welcome to a brand spanking new video. Welcome to the channel. Right, today's video is going to be something a little bit different. I'm still suffering from man flu. I'm trying to get over it. It's going, but unfortunately it does mean it's been a bit of a drag on the old flight simulator. It's the first time when I've been able to get on the flight sim. However, in my time off, whilst suffering from said man flu, I have picked up this particular aircraft. Now, this is the COWS DA42, which has just been released, and well, to be quite frank, I do like my general aviation aircraft, and in my humble opinion, the best of the general aviation aircraft is the A2A Comanche 250. I think it's fantastic, it's awesome. However, finally, we have an aircraft that has come along and potentially has the ability, the potential to be better than the A2A Comanche 250. Now, is it the best general aviation aircraft in Flight Simulator? It's the damn well good one. I personally would say this is, to be fair to it, I would say it is the best of the twins. Obviously being a twin engine design. So to make this a fair comparison video, I'm actually going to go into it a little bit more detail than I normally would. Normally a video would just be me flying around badly in a local area showing you the aircraft. Well, this aircraft is so detailed, and it's, I think, at the same degree as the A2A Comanche 250, that this aircraft deserves to have multiple videos done on it. So this video is like the what's in the box. We don't get boxes nowadays, but we do get, obviously, a download version, which is what I've got here. Now, like I said, this is from a company called COWS. I'd never heard of them, but they have done a study-level DA42. Now, what is the DA42? Well, it is a very, very advanced twin-engined, multi-crew aircraft. Okay, you can have, in this aircraft, you can have a crew of 2, and you can have 2 passengers in the back. It is fast. This thing, I mean, you just look at this thing, how the elegance of this aircraft. It is very, very fast. The engines on this thing, in this particular version, are actually extremely powerful. You don't need flaps to take off on this aircraft unless you're on a particularly short runway, but we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in the future. So, like I say, COWS. Well, first of all, where do you purchase this aircraft from? Well, you actually purchase it from Orbex. Now, Orbex has done some brilliant aircraft and some absolutely jaw-dropping scenery in the past, but they've gone to cahoots with COWS, and this is where you can purchase the DA42. Now, you do get 2 DA42s. You have the DA42 VI and the DA42 TDI, of which you see right in front of you now. Other than speed, I actually don't know what the difference is. I mean, there is a little bit of difference in the cockpit, but I have only been flying the ridiculously fast one, and boy, it's amazing. But a lot of companies like to throw the word study level out there, and some aircraft warrant that description. The A2A Comanche definitely warrants the level of the title study level. This is very much a study level aircraft. This was actually developed in cahoots with the company that actually makes the DA42, which is Diamond, and was actually designed with them in mind, and trainee pilots, instructors, all that sort of stuff, to make this the best DA42 we have currently in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is not difficult because we only have the version that came with the simulator, but now we have a very, very good, absolutely jaw-droppingly awesome rendition of right here nowadays. So what we actually have, I'm not going to go through the whole lot because I've actually got the blurb up about the aircraft, and just go on to Orbex's page and have a look at the detail this thing goes into. We have light-baked photorealistic reflections and ray-traced shadows and lighting textures. That's a lot of big words, but basically this means that when you look at this aircraft, it looks like the real thing. I mean, the looks of this aircraft, the angles, the blendingness, that's a good word, isn't it? But the way the light falls on the aircraft, it looks absolutely, well, first of all, it looks menacing for a general aviation aircraft, but just the way the light falls on this aircraft, it's very, very good. Absolutely awesome. We have a faithful exterior model matched with hundreds of pictures at various angles. And that shows you the development stage that went into the development of this aircraft. You don't just think as a company, oh, we're going to come out with a DA42, let's go and make a computerized version of a DA42 for Flight Simulator. No. You go to Diamond, you go to have a look at real aircraft, and you take thousands of photos of every single thing you can take a photo of and translate that into the flight simulator to make it the most realistic rendition of the aircraft. What else have we got here? Flight model. This is going to be very, very important. Okay, so it's a tried and tested. This is off Orbex's page themselves. A tried and tested directly by DA42 students and flight instructors. The flight model faithfully replicates the performance of the real aircraft in all stages of flight, including single-engine maneuvers, that'll be interesting, and engine performance. You'll feel like you're flying the real DA42 straight from the computer. Now, I'll be honest, I've seen a few DA42s. I've actually spoken to some instructor companies, flight companies that actually use DA42s and the single engine one, the DA, I can't remember what it's called, the single engine version of this. And they were fantastically in-depth detail about this aircraft. They were fantastically great at the level of training these aircrafts can provide, and this flight simulator version has had that in mind. So it may be, some companies just throw that out there saying, oh, well, we've spoken to the real company. This is going to the nth degree, not just the real company, but we're talking flight instructors and students. Okay, systems. Now, this is where this aircraft really comes into its own. Accurate electrical system with circuit breakers and custom alternator voltage simulation. This simulation of the DA42 simulates electrical. We have a full working circuit breaker system. Now, I know there's some aircraft in Flight Simulator that do have working circuit breakers, but this aircraft has a full, proper, accurate replication of the circuit breaker system for the DA42. Again, I'll show you this off when I go into the interior of the aircraft. We have a custom standby flight instrumentation, DI system with weight and functional stall heat. Okay, this aircraft simulates everything that the real DA42 has. We have all sorts of things. Sound. Now, this is a big thing. For me personally, sound is so important to a flight simulator. Because if it don't sound like the real thing, you're never going to believe it's the real thing. I know we're sitting on a computer, but, it has to sound like the real thing. Developed from the creator of the sounds for FBW's A32NX, Flight FX version, Jet, and other projects. Sound simulation follows systems, including the hydraulic actuator. Dynamic engine wind and ground roll noises. Engine sounds differ depending on prop pitch, fuel flow, and speed. Now that's interesting, and I'll go into this in a little more detail. When you start the engines up, they will make a noise, obviously. Now, normally in a flight simulator, let's just say the engines are louder when you are pushing them a little bit more. So you're rolling down the runway, high throttle settings, the engines are louder. The propeller pitch and the harmonization you'll hear in the cockpit changes as the aircraft rolls down the runway at a high power setting. What else we got? Dynamic wind noises, howling sounds in slips, and drag noises with gear and flaps. Now, basically, this means that obviously when you put the gear down, for instance, you will hear not only the gear being dropped and opened, and obviously all the functionality of the undercarriage, but you'll feel the wind hitting the three legs of the undercarriage. And again, we've seen this in Flight Simulator before, but this is very well done. Sounds sourced from first-party sources and local DA42. So again, this shows you they've gone to a real DA42 and replicated, recorded even, the actual noises across the whole spectrum of the flight. Not just the engines idling on the ground, but also in the air. And it also simulates the headset, which again, I do believe the A2A Comanche does that as well. So, this is, make no doubt about it, it is a very well created, very accurate version of the DA42. And I am absolutely, completely blown away by this aircraft. I didn't think we was going to get an aircraft that would be even on par with the A2A Comanche. Not only have we got an aircraft that is probably on par with the A2A Comanche, I think it might be better in certain ways. Just in the generation of the aircraft. The A2A Comanche is an old aircraft, the Comanche 250. This is a much more up-to-date aircraft. And if we jump inside, I'll actually show you what this actually looks like. So I haven't got TrackIR running at the moment because it'll be much more realistic if I head, or much more easier for you guys when I'm pointing at stuff, if my head doesn't move. But as you can see, if you go back to the A2A Comanche 250, we have a lot of analog controls. Yes, we do have the ability to have a sat-nav, like I use my GTN 750 in the Comanche 250, and it works fine. This is the G1000, the Garmin G1000 setup, which is now pretty much in a lot of aircraft nowadays, and in also a lot of the Flight Simulator. And it takes up a lot of the instrumentation. Obviously, you've got the pilot one is the one that you're going to be using to have a sort of heads-up display in the screen, and navigation and communications, as your navigation frequencies as your communication frequencies on the other side. If you go over to this screen, this is your navigation, your GPS, and it basically means that you've got a lot of information on the two screens. Now, you do have some basic instruments. You have a basic speedo, artificial horizon, and an altimeter. Obviously, this is all put on your screens, on your G1000s, but it's obviously you do need to have a backup redundancy system. If you look in, what have we got here? We'll go across the top of the cockpit. We have lighting section here. So this is quite normal. You have an instrument lighting, your flood lighting, which is if I could just go down, there is a light bar underneath here, which when you turn the floodlight on, illuminates the instruments. Then you have your aircraft lighting, so your landing, your taxi, your position, your strobe. I guess they're all generic across pretty much a lot of aircraft. Again, all these are functional. This is not functional, and I do believe that is not functional. You don't need to play around with those in real aircraft. In the Flight Simulator version. Again, you have the G1000 left and right screens. We also have the communications, or I do believe it's communications. I can't remember exactly what this particular panel is called, but it's to deal with your communications setup. Yeah, so it's all that kind of stuff. Don't really have to pay attention, I should say, too much to that, because you can set up your frequencies a little bit different. I actually use a Saitek communications, I can't remember what the exact title of the thing is, but it's an old panel which I can change my navigation, COM1, COM2, NAV1, NAV2 frequencies, and it responds obviously in the G1000 here. Moving on to this part here, this is obviously the very famous fuse panel, and these are all functional, and if they do pop, and they will pop if this aircraft detects an issue, the correct response will be required. Bits and pieces will stop working if, for instance, a fuse panel goes. So we've got a stall warning fuse panel there, fuse. So if fuse 10 there blows, or pops, I believe this will be the stall warning, which would come up down here on your G1000. That won't work anymore. Obviously, you've got all sorts of things here. You don't normally have to pay attention to this, but in the startup process, you do have to pay attention to this, because you can start this aircraft up 99% accurate to the real thing. You can get a checklist. I've actually got it on my iPad, and I can start the aircraft up. They've taken a few things out that the real aircraft requires, and obviously in a simulator we don't require them, but other than that, everything else pretty much works. We have some de-icing gear here. Again, it's all functional, all works, and you know, I haven't flown this aircraft yet in bad weather, but it's obviously, if you are flying in cold weather or through cloud or anything like that, you do have to pay attention to de-icing, because this aircraft again will simulate de-icing, or icing I should say, effects upon the wings and the control surfaces. So moving down, we've got more fuse panels, another fuse panel down here. We then move over to the flap control. We have 3 positions for the flaps: up, mid, landing, or so as they call it, up, approach and landing. And you actually do have the speed, the maximum speed you can put these flaps out at. So 133 indicated knots, you can put the approach flaps out. 113, I believe that is, indicated knots, or knots indicated, you can put the landing flaps out. Again, like I said at the start of this video, this aircraft is incredibly powerful. The engines on this aircraft are incredibly powerful. We are currently at RF Waddington. I wouldn't dream of using flaps on takeoff. You just don't need them. This aircraft gets going very quickly. Now we have the fuel pumps. Okay, so these are the main fuel pumps, left and right fuel pumps. Again, we have some fuses for the fuel pumps, again simulated. We have the undercarriage lever and the undercarriage light indication. We have a gear test warning button. You press this and obviously it'll light up the lights and check that check the systems are working correctly. Again, this is part of the startup process of the aircraft. Moving on to the engines and electrical systems. Now this is a great thing about this aircraft. In a lot of other aircraft, they're complicated to start up. I mean, obviously a Cessna's not that complicated really, but this aircraft is a lot much more simple, I should say. So we have, and I was going to go from this side here, but we have the main battery switch here, we have the avionics switch here, we have a left and right main engine switch. I can't remember exactly what these things are called, but to turn the engine on, you need to have, let's say you want to turn the left engine on, or start the left engine, flick this up, move that over to left, and the engine will start, obviously assuming you've got the fuel in the right place. It's that simple. It's literally one switch, turn the key, engine starts. You have your pitot heat switch even sat here. Again, it's a simulated system. This does affect the aircraft if you don't run it. We have a computerized system here for the engines. Now, each engine, okay, so there's one, has 2 ECUs, an A system and a B system, which you can see right here. Now, you can set, so left engine here, to run on ECU A. And it'll run quite happily on ECU A as long as the system's all working. Or you may put it onto ECU B. Again, it's a backup redundancy system. Or what you can do is set it in the middle and leave it in auto, so the engine will run on a ECU. If it detects that ECU has failed in some way, shape or form, it will automatically switch over to the opposite ECU. So if it was running on A goes wrong, ECU B will start up. Again, this is all simulated. If your fuse panel blows something to do with your ECU, which I'm looking around now, and I can't find anything off the top of my head. Batteries, alternators, ECUs, there you go. Left-hand ECUs, bus, and right-hand ECU bus. So if these ones here, or these ones here blow for some reason, you have an electrical issue, okay, this aircraft will be smart enough to detect this issue and switch over to hopefully keep the engine running. These buttons here, fantastic system. Okay, to test that the ECUs are running perfectly, part of the engine run-up part of the checklist requires you to have this in auto, both of them, and to press in the middle and basically it presses both the ECU test buttons together, and the engines, the computer, will automatically run the engines up to a high power setting, like you would do when you're doing your magneto checks on an aircraft. And it will run through ECU A, ECU B on engine 1, and then it will run through ECU A and ECU B on engine 2, and it will tell you whether you've got any issues. Again, this is simulated. We also have, obviously, the alternators sat here, a left hand and a right hand. Right, moving on to the center console, we have, well, I need a coffee at the moment, my voice is about to disappear. Joy's having a cold. Right. We have the center console, we have the rudder trim. This obviously is just a mouse wheel to whichever way you want to set the rudder trim. You then have your parking brakes, defrost and cabin heat. These are levers. That is parking brake set, that is parking brake released. These ones you can move up to whatever you want to set it up as. And obviously in certain conditions, wet weather and all that, you do need to have your defrost or your cabin heat on. Moving on to the throttles, again, independent throttles, we have 2 engines. Then we have the fuel system, and basically we can set this down to either left engine on in this particular one, or crossfeed, or if we move this tag out the way, we can actually stop the engine altogether. So if we have these tags out the way, which I can these are very hard to click on without getting the trim setting. And if we move that all the way down, the engine will stop. Obviously we don't want that while the engine's running, so part of the system check-up, the run-up list and all that start-up is that you have these little tags put in the right way, so that, you know, in certain circumstances when you're starting the engine you need to have it in that position. When you're actually just normal flying, you set them both to cross-feed, so that obviously the tanks will cross-feed between the pair of them, between the wing tanks I should say. Moving on, we have the trim, obviously, which is trim down, trim up. It's a wheel, it's very simple to use, we've all seen these things. And then we have, I don't know whether these are actually put in, yeah, simulation use, I can't even say that word. It's your auxiliary fuel pumps. I was about to burst into coughing then. But yeah, that is basically what you get from the front cockpit of the DA42. Now, there are a few things I've learned so far. This, for instance, looks exactly like one of those wonderful little iPad tablets that we all pull out, and you can change options and yada yada yada, change the aircraft. Okay, at the moment, this aircraft does not have one. However, in the future, it will, and I do think that's where it's going to be, because there is no doubt about it, that is a tablet. There is no click spot for this, but they have said, COWS have said, that there is going to be a tablet released in a future update. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual look of this aircraft, because we've said on the outside how beautiful it looks on the outside. Well, the same on the inside. It looks really, really good. A little bit of maybe poor texturing here on the ceiling, but again, how many times are you going to be looking like this? You're normally looking at what's forward. We do have light controls here, I've just realised that. The leather of the seats, okay, is accurate up to the point of it's leather. It looks very, very good. However, I don't believe there's a COWS logo on the real one. I think this will be the diamond logo. If we move into the back, and if I remember how to do this, I don't normally do this, but again, moving into the back, we have the 2 seats again, probably for smaller people, not for people of, say, my height. Again, it's a 2-seater at the back. We have this file that does absolutely nothing. I don't know whether this is going to be part of the checklist that may be in the aircraft in the future. I don't know, but obviously each aircraft in real world does come with files like this. Again, we've got the COWS logo on the headrest. Now, we can open up the canopy here for the passengers to get in and out. Nice sounds. Again, very good. Means you can look out over that beautiful wing and look at some of the beautiful textures on this aircraft. It is fantastic. And if you want to shut that, just click on the tag, and that's shut. So if I remember which button it is, yes, there we go. I'm sort of there. Right, so again, we've got this canopy open for ourselves. This is obviously how we get into the front end of this aircraft. We could stand on these particular parts of the wing here, not there. Very nice one to put a logo there. Again, click on the tag, shuts and locks the cabin. Again, we do have a little cat flap here we can open up to yell out clear prop even. And to shut it again, we just click on this tag. I always remember some aircraft it's click on that part to shut it. Some aircraft it's clicking on the cat flap. Is all sorts of different click spots. Something I have seen, and I will go into this in part 2 when we actually do start this aircraft up. The realism, I keep going on about this is a very realistic version of the DA42, and part of the startup sequence we have to check the trim settings, how the stick responds in certain trim settings and certain power settings. So with the engines turned off, you throttle the engines up and pull the stick back, and the trim will automatically start pushing this stick forward. Okay, it's looking after the aircraft. You're not supposed to trim stall, I think is a technical terminology for it. If you throttle back, the stick will then pull back again to its normal position because you're holding the stick back. So it's that realistic. It's that fantastic. It is a very, very realistic aircraft. And I absolutely love this aircraft. Like I said, I've done a few flights in it, and I'm hoping to create a series of videos. I love this aircraft so much, I'm going to do a series of videos on the DA42 by COWS. I think it's fantastic. Okay, so if you're interested in buying this, I don't know whether I actually mentioned this because I've been prattling on so much now. Okay, so remember, this is off Orbix.com. OrbixDirect.com, I should say. I don't know whether it's going to be released out through other vendors, but at the moment it's only Orbix. And at the moment it retails for $46, this is Australian, and 25 cents. Translate that for other money, we have £23 and 96p for the UK. We have 28 euros and 1 cent for any of the Euro countries, and for the US we have $30 and 32 cents. I think this is fantastic. You get 2 versions of the DA42, very accurately created, very good sounding, awesome to fly, a great training aircraft. If you want to train in multi-engine aircraft, this is the aircraft for you. There are other good representations of twin-engine aircraft out there. This is the best, in my view, twin-engined aircraft out there on Flight Simulator right now. So, I hope you found this video informative. I know I prattled on about this, and I know that some people, it's probably not really what they want. They want to see the aircraft fly. That'll be in the next video when I start going through some of the startup procedure for this aircraft. Like I said, I've got a checklist for a DA42 for the simulator, and we will be going through it by the checklist, hopefully when my cold has disappeared and I've got a few more practice flights in it so that I can do the video. So yeah, again, I hope you found this video informative, and I hope you find the series of videos I'm going to create on the DA42 fun, informative and interesting. So I hope you find this video fun, and I will see you in part 2 of the series very, very soon.